And we are rolling here. So my name's Todd Money, strategic coach to financial professionals for over 12 years, and I'm delighted to be here to serve you today. And I sincerely mean that, I really do. It just fires me up more than you can imagine to have some impact on your lives and see you being more successful in your business. I know you're going to want to take a good number of notes today, so I would encourage you to get a pad and pen and have that ready. And I want to get you started by asking you to write down 3 simple questions that we're going to circle back to at the end of this presentation. The first question is, what will I do? The second is, why will I do it? And then the third is, when will I do it? Now, aren't these pretty typical coaching questions, right? And you know where I'm going with this. You know, look, your time is too precious to waste 30 to 40 minutes or a little more listening to great ideas without taking action. It's just too valuable, and I couldn't live with myself knowing that you guys are going to just listen and do nothing with it. So I want to encourage you to be really intentional to do at least one thing following up on today's webinar. And I'm going to make it easy for you at the end, really easy, but be prepared. You deserve a return on this investment of time, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that that happens. Now, with over 28 years in sales, having started more than 6 businesses, I have to start with an important question. I have to start with a really important question. I want you to think about this, and I'm interested to see your answers. So type it again into the chat area as you come up with answers here. From your perspective, what's the most valuable asset you have to grow your business? The most valuable asset you have to grow your business. Anybody want to type some answers in there? Let me see a few answers. No wrong answers. I'm sure there are a lot of good answers. Current clients, internet, time and sales skills. Yep. Couple repetitive ones there. Those are all good, absolutely good. And again, with over 28 years in sales, having started more than 6 businesses and a church, I might add, and 15 years coaching business owners, 12 specifically in the financial industry, I've come to realize one elusive fact about growing a business. Your existing clients are your most valuable asset for growth. Your existing clients. Now, somebody said that. Somebody answered it that way, and I'm going to just really reinforce that, and I hope that you walk away from this webinar truly convinced, because I want you to focus on your clients a lot more than you perhaps are doing today. And I'm going to give you some ways to do that. That's a big part of this niche strategy. The easiest and most effective way to grow your business is by focusing first on creating loyal clients. Now, I want you to write that term down, loyal clients, because it means something very important. What do I mean by the term loyal clients? I'm talking about clients that offer tremendous value to your business in a number of ways, not just financial. Of course, that's a big one. But I'm talking about clients who want to buy from you again and again. You know, repeat customers, customers that are going to, you know, continue to do business with you because they appreciate the value that you deliver. Clients who want to give you all of their business if you can provide the right solutions. Clients who wouldn't hear of going to a competitor. Clients who become ambassadors of your business, telling others about you and making introductions and sending referrals. Clients who will give you insight. They'll be real with you. They'll tell you what they like, what they don't like, and they'll give you ideas. They want to see you win. And clients who honestly fuel your passion, your personal passion, and fulfill your sense of purpose and mission as a business, right? That's a feedback loop that's worth, you know, it's priceless, right? How does it feel when you walk out of a client's office where you've made a big impact on their lives, and they're excited about it? I mean, that's the juice, right? That keeps us going. So now if you're thinking, and I know some of you probably are, gosh, that's pretty much all of our clients, then I'll tell you right now, this webinar is probably not for you, or perhaps it is and you're just in denial. But either way, I'm passionate about helping the rest of you who get this and feel like you're just having to work way too hard to get new clients and grow your business. It does not have to be that hard. I want to show you the power of focus, specifically the power of focus on a niche strategy that can bring tremendous prosperity to your clients and your business and your family, because I'll tell you, that's a big part of the why behind what I do. Now, again, what we're looking for is to build clients that will give us repeat business, retention for life, referrals with ease, real insight that we're looking for to improve and to build our business. And that insight will be especially important as we build out a niche strategy and reassure us of our value. It's that mojo that keeps giving, and we need that. So first, I want you to meet a couple of gentlemen here, a couple of clients of mine, Devin and Brian. Devin and Brian were introduced to me by loyal clients a few years back. Yep, I walked the walk. My first few years in the coaching business, around 15 years ago, it was like most of you guys. It was making a lot of cold calls and knocking on a lot of doors, talking to a lot of people, networking and all that. But once I built a book of business and built a reputation, it became much easier, and I could really focus on creating loyalty from the clients that I served and get a perpetual flow of referrals and introductions. And that's how I built my business over the years, and it's worked beautifully for me. I continue to do this type of thing because I want to make the biggest impact that I can make. And it still helps, obviously, to create more reassurance for my loyal clients and others. But here's the thing. I was introduced to these guys, and like a lot of you and a lot of others out there, they were less than satisfied with the growth they were getting. A couple years into the business, they had really done well. They worked really, really hard. They had a decent book of business. But in 2015, going into 2016, they really lost some momentum. They literally lost about 100,000 in GDC. They hit kind of a wall. And again, this wasn't too far after they started. They were about 3 years into the business, but it's kind of like a transmission, it just wasn't, it wasn't shifting smoothly. They just weren't getting the kind of synergy that they needed, and they weren't syncing up and getting the traction. The engine was just working way too hard for too little traction. So what did we do? I got him to slow down in order to speed up. Now, that's a phrase that most of you are familiar with. And it's really kind of a challenging phrase, right? I mean, most of us are so used to working hard, going at it, trying different things. To think about slowing down to speed up is really hard, but it's essential. And in fact, Forbes published an article, I think it was back in 2011 on this topic. I think that was around the date. But anyway, I have a quote from the first paragraph that I want to share with you. And it says, complexity is in cahoots with speed and uncertainty. When you have a lot of time and even less clarity, complexity steps in to demand even more of you. Wow, can we not appreciate that statement? I'm sure that you're nodding your head going, wow, yeah, that is absolutely what I'm feeling, at least most of you. And when you put all three together, according to the quote, you put all three together, speed, uncertainty, and complexity, and the toughest among us can falter. That's where my compassion comes in. I've been there and done that as a business owner more often than I would like to admit. We're working hard. The speed's in there. You got to make progress fast. There's a lot of complexity, a lot of things going on around us, and it's just hard to slow down. And the uncertainty, especially in the financial industry, just creates so much challenge for us. And it's tough. Even for the best of us, we can falter. So what do we do when we slowed down? We took first a niche assessment. We took an inventory. We diagnosed the transmission, if you will. This niche assessment, by the way, the exact one that they use with some improvements, modifications since then, as I'll always do, is available to you at the end of this webinar. I want you to have this. I want you to be able to look at it because it's going to do a couple things for you. Like these guys, it's going to enlighten you. The questions themselves will get you to go, wow, I never thought about that, or you know what, I thought about it, but I haven't done anything about it. On one side, I get this reaction up front almost every time. It's a little bit depressing because when you first look at it, you're thinking, geez, there's a lot of things that I really could and should be doing that I'm not. So it feels kind of bad in that sense. But then, I'm quick to step in and go, where are you now, right? It's not like you're not successful. I mean, most of the clients that I work with are already successful. They're doing well. They just want to do better. They want more money. They want more clients, the right clients. They want more life, and they want more fun. And so from that standpoint, there's tremendous opportunity. And with that enlightenment These guys really made a huge shift very quickly. In fact, what happened was we went from there to a couple VIP days. You know, a couple ways to knock out this strategy and put a game plan together. You can do it over time, you know, through conversations and ongoing work, or you know what, you can roll up your sleeves, prepare a little bit, get together and knock it out. And that's exactly what we did over a couple days. We put it all together. We basically aligned their niche strategy with their business plan, with their, and this is key, with their personalities. I'm going to circle back on that one in a minute. But you know, your business is an extension of who you are. It shouldn't be who somebody else is. You don't have to build your business the way somebody else did it. You can build it the way you want to do it. There are some best practices and processes. In fact, that's what I'm going to give you today. But it's so flexible that you can still tailor it to your unique business, your unique context, and your unique personality. And that is so important in order for you to sustain the success of any business plan. And once we did that, the game changed very quickly. I mean, really quickly. Within like 30 days, you know, Devin was so excited. He went immediately out with his new story, with his increased clarity, started talking to all the COIs that he had already been talking to and hadn't gotten hardly any introductions over the prior year. And within 30 days, he had 2 to 3 introductions from each one of them that he spoke to. That's big. What's even bigger is he brought in, within 90 days, he brought in 3 new profile ideal clients. Locked them down. That's big. And you guys know it's big. I mean, when you make that kind of improvement that quickly, there's obviously something there. Roll the clock forward. Here it is, 2017. I just heard from Devin this week. Year to date, he's 25% over what he was last year in GDC, and his pipeline is healthy as it can be. And he's gotten so much success, and he's made so many good connections, and his story is resonating so well that he's actually attracting opportunities that are bigger than his company. I mean, I don't want to go into detail, but there's some big things that are on the horizon for them, all because they slowed down to speed up. Now, what I want to tell you about this, you know, a lot of guys like me will get out there and they'll tell you their best stories. That's not my best story. That's a typical story. That's not exceptional. It's typical. It's a transformation that builds momentum and a business that's more purposeful, profitable, and fun. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this with you today. Now look, there are a number of alternatives that you can walk away with from this call. You can put it off. You know, you can wait till the pain is too much and then you decide to do something about it. By that point, I've been there. I've had folks reach out to me when they're at that point, and it's really hard to pull out of that, because by that point, it's kind of like an old house that's been dilapidated. It's so much work to get it back in order that, you know, it's an uphill battle. It's a real mind game. You know, so that's one option. Or you can figure it out on your own. You can walk away going, you know what, this is a great idea. He really inspired me to do something about this, but I'm going to try to figure it out on my own. I'm going to wing it. I'm going to, you know, reinvent the wheel. Well, you know, kind of like the first one, you're really just delaying pain, because I've seen it more often than not. It's so frustrating. It can be so difficult to try to reinvent the wheel while you're trying to work in your business and on your business, that you tend to give up and you end up back in the first spot. You know, it ends up being put off. So it's almost a different version of the first one. Or you can go out and spend a lot of money hiring a mentor coach, and I call him a mentor coach for a reason. And this is feedback that I've gotten from folks that I've worked with. You know, those that have actually built their own book of business, whether they're an agent, they're a marketer, or whether they're an advisor. You know, when these mentor coaches reach a point in their careers where they're kind of like, you know what, I've done it, I figured it out, and I'm a little bit bored with it, and I really want to go out and teach others how to do it. That's great. I love that. In fact, you know, in my former coaching business, we had a number of coaches, and we had a number of coaches on our team that were those guys, and it's all fine. But my biggest challenge, even in managing them and seeing it with others out there that are doing this, is they tend to want you to do it exactly the way they did it. That's what they're familiar with. That's what they know. So that doesn't always work real well. You can get real good anecdotals, but it can sometimes be over structured. You know, do it this way and only this way. My suggestion would be to take a proven process like I'm going to give you today and really tailor it to your business. A proven process that's been tried in the trenches by a lot of different advisors that have been extremely successful. And that has built into the process, flexibilities where you can adapt it to your personality and to your context. So this process that I'm referring to that we're going to dive into today is designing the ultimate niche strategy for more sales and introductions. There are 6 parts of this ultimate niche strategy, and we're going to break it down and talk about each one in some detail in the time that we have here. There's the primary niche or specialization. We want to define that as best we can, our primary niche or area of specialization. Then we want to take that and break it down, and we want to define those core services that we're going to deliver, both products and services that we're going to deliver to that niche. Then we're going to hit on something that's extremely important, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment, how important it is, but we've got to create a contact structure, a touch point strategy, if you will, as a part of our niche strategy. And then the last core piece of the niche strategy is add value benefits. We'll talk about those niceties that add, expediency or efficiency or convenience to our client's experience. But you're going to hear me talking about the annualized client experience multiple times today. And that's what this entire niche strategy is designed to do, is create an annualized experience for your clients that makes them raving fans, that makes them loyal clients. Now, the 5th one here is to take all that and to communicate it to new clients. And the best way I've seen to do that is through some type of service model illustration. And I'm going to give you some examples of that as well. And then the last piece of the puzzle, which is absolutely imperative, is to be able to implement it. And that's what I'll call kind of a roles and responsibilities matrix, to basically define those things that have to be done to implement your touch point, your service levels, in a way that will consistently create that loyal client that we're talking about. And I'm going to lay all this out for you today as quickly as I can and give you an opportunity for some follow-up in case I missed something or you have some additional questions. Now, some of you may be sitting back going, okay, this all sounds good, but I really don't know this Todd guy. Tell me a little bit more about you. So I'm going to share just a little bit here. I don't want to go into a lot of detail because, these things can be really boring. But basically, I'm a native North Carolinian here in the Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, home of the 8-3 Carolina Panthers. No hating out there now. I spent the first 12 years out of college in corporate sales, trained by Fortune 500 heavy hitters, Pitney Bowes, Konica Business Machines, and ADP. I sold postage meters, I sold mailing machines, I've sold copiers, facsimiles, facsimiles during their launch heyday, digital technology when they were first coming out. So I've even, been a part of leading edge technology launches. Sold outsourced payroll and HR services, so not just tangible products, but intangible products. I've been certified in strategic selling and was trained under the Xerox model. If any of you are familiar with Xerox, you know that they're masters at sales. So I have that background. So that really helps me tremendously in helping you guys boost your sales and grow your businesses. But I also have and had at the time a strong entrepreneurial itch. So my entrepreneurial instincts led me on to start 6 businesses and even started a church, I might add, over the following 18 years. 12 of the most recent devoted to over 3,000 hours of coaching financial professionals in the U.S. and abroad. So again, I could go on about my background, but I think you get it. I know what I'm talking about, and I've got a lot of experience working with a lot of the best guys out there and women out there that are knocking it out of the park. But the most important, probably the most important thing that you need to know about me is my why. My most challenging experiences, and I mean challenging, as a business owner, along with my faith and family, have inspired me to make a huge positive impact in the lives of others like you, business owners in the financial services industry and sales professionals that are trying to make a bigger impact, a bigger difference with their clients, and ultimately to live a bigger life and to serve those that they love the most. And I'm passionate about helping others to do that and living their best lives. So let's press on, right? And before we get into these 6 parts, I just want to do a little housekeeping on a softer, lighter note here. We're going to talk a lot about niche, and this word gets kind of butchered. It might interest you to know there are actually 3 ways to pronounce this word. The first one is niche, like sheesh. The other way to pronounce it is like niche, like a fish, right? And my personal favorite is niche, kind of like stitch. So, you know, potato, potato, tomato, tomato, you know, who cares? As long as we're on the same page. I just wanted to clear that up real quick before we start diving in. Some of you high systemic folks might get stuck with that one. So anyway, number one, we have to start with defining our primary niche or area of specialization. Your areas of emphasis, if you will, aimed at your target market. Now, I want to highlight target market because we don't have time to get into defining your target market today, but there are two kind of precursors to this process that you really do need to do. The first thing is define your target market. And you want to write this down real quickly. I could go through a full process for doing that, make it really simple for you, but let me just give you the Cliff Notes version. There are 4 areas where you can define attributes of your ideal client. One is the demographics. That's things like married, unmarried, children, no children. Those type of things are like your demographics. Could even be religion. There's just a lot of ways that you can take those demographics and carve it up. But that's significant because the age group of, say, 35 to 45 versus 55 to 65, those two demographic differences are really 2 entirely different target markets. So you really do need to take some time to jot those attributes down. So the first one is demographics. The second one is geographics. That's like the obvious. Are you working certain areas, cities, states, those type of things? If so, you need to write those down and be real specific about it. The third one is psychographics. Now that's things like, are they committed to their financial future? Are they coachable? Are they willing to take advice? Those are the psychographics. And then the fourth component of a good ideal client strategy is, or ideal client profile, is their behavioral patterns. Now that might be something like vacationers. They love to take a lot of vacation or travel a lot. Maybe they operate in close circles of elite folks and things like that. Golfers, again, those are behavioral attributes. Now those are important too, not necessarily to figure out who you want to work with, but they can be really helpful in figuring out how you reach those people. So I would suggest that you create your ideal client profile first, or define your target market before you jump into this. The other thing that I would also suggest you do is take that and create segments within your book. Now you guys have heard of segmentation strategies. I'll make it really simple. Take your ideal client profile, the top 2 demographics, like maybe annual revenue or GDC or premiums or number of policies or assets under management, whatever those key demographics are, take the top 2 of them and just dilute those down to create your second, third, and fourth tier of clients. That's a simple way of doing it. I would go further than that, but that's a good simple way to immediately kind of group these folks, because what we do in this niche strategy is we're going to ultimately define all the things that you're going to deliver to these folks, but then you're going to have to figure out how to appropriate them the right way so that you're not spending too much time or money with the wrong folks. Really, really important. So segmenting your book and defining your ideal client in reverse order, actually. Define your ideal client, then segment your book, or figure out how you want to define your segments, and then you're really prepared to launch into this full steam. So when you think about that ideal client, you're going, okay, what is it about my experience, or what is it about these clients, the best of my clients, that they have in common that might lend itself well to a niche or an area of specialization? I've got a good example. I've got an Edward Jones client here in North Carolina, out in the New Bern area. And we worked together for about 2 years back in 2010, 11, and that just launched the next wave of growth. And then he re-engaged me last year and said, I've kind of hit a plateau. I need to take it to the next level. And what we did was we took we really did this, is what we did. We got into some real specifics around his target market and realized his target markets were really not that specific. I mean, he wanted basically retired folks. And I'm going, there's nothing unique about that. There's no way to specialize in that with that descriptive. And so we started talking about it and talking about his background and commonalities of his clients. And what we discovered is he had a history with family members of disabilities. And he also had a number of clients with disabilities, and that just seemed to inspire passion in him. When we started talking about it, you could hear his tone go up, his voice is excited, and we thought, geez, that's it. That's it. How would it feel to take these target markets and really within that create an area of specialization for families or individuals with disabilities and special needs? And boy, the light bulbs went off and the ideas started flowing, and he started finding, different centers of influence that he could connect with that highly concentrated in those circles with others, nonprofits and things like that. And it just created a whole nother wave of opportunity and growth. So that's an example of where you might look at those things and figure out what is an area that I can specialize in. Now, here's a quick 6-step process to do this. Again, I'm all about quick. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough, because there's a lot to do. So do it quickly, because it's easier to go back and refine it than to start it. So just do it quickly. List your possible niches. Carve out 30 minutes to sit down and list all the possible ways that you could create some way of specializing. Then go back. You can even create a little quick matrix with this. List them on the left side, and then for each one, give yourself a score in 3 key areas. What's your 1 to 5 score for passion on that niche? How excited are you when you think about serving people in that way? What are your life experiences like that would lend strength to that niche? That's the second area of rank, 1 to 5. And then the third would be compatible skills and strengths. Where maybe you've studied under that particular area, like the disabilities. I mean, this gentleman had extensive knowledge and skills around areas of disability. So that was a core strength for him. That will help you zero in on the best few niches. Then what you want to do is look at, this is kind of a sidebar, am I obligated or feel obligated to any one of these niches? If you do, that's a red flag, because obligation is oftentimes stimulated out of guilt or a sense of commitment that's not really a desire. It's really kind of a guilt, and that's not usually sustainable. So that's just a little one-off there. Just check yourself on that one. And the last one is rank your niche potential, and this is the most important. So once you've narrowed it down to the best few, then figure out which one offers the best potential in terms of your target market out there, your demographics, your geographics. Are there enough of those folks with those type of situations that I can address in this special way? Okay, so that's step 1, is to define your general niche or area of specialization. Now we're going to start really unpacking nuts and bolts. The next component of your niche strategy is your core services. Right? You recall defining a niche as a unique way you satisfy your target market's wants and needs and solve their problems. How you do that specifically is what we're getting into here. So in terms of core services, we're talking about defining the specific products or solutions or services that you offer. Let me give you a quick example here. But before I do so, here's 2 quick steps to do it. List your products first, list your services second. It's that easy. And when we talk about products, we're talking about literally breaking down your insurance products, maybe your annuity products, your financial plan deliverable would be a part of that. Maybe you have a couple versions of financial plans you offer, but list them. Just get them out of your head onto paper. It's pretty interesting experience and very enlightening experience when you get it out of your head and write it on paper. So I would encourage you to just, even a spreadsheet on a computer, just list them. Do the same thing with your service offerings. And services are different, obviously. Products are literally like an insurance policy or an annuity product or any of those type of things. Services might be money management strategies or the way you manage their assets, wealth management, which could be unpacked into a number of different services that you provide. Fee-based planning, obviously a service. So you're quickly listing your products, you're quickly listing your services, and here's a simple matrix that would kind of illustrate how you might do that. And it even goes a step further to tie into how I was talking about the importance of segmenting, defining those different segments of your book. Because when you list these, what you're going to end up coming back to, this will all be blank here, but when you list these down, what you're going to end up coming back to is, how do I want to define these more specifically for each of my segments? Because they may not be delivered or delivered in the same way across all your segments. right? You might not be able to afford to. Maybe they're not paying enough. Maybe it gives you an opportunity to upsell them or get more assets in order to provide more services. But the bottom line is you want to list these products and services here. Here are a couple examples. Cost of financial planning. They're doing financial plan. This example is we're doing financial plans for everybody, but how am I doing it? With my A clients, I'm including the financial plan in their asset under management fees, right? In their money management fees. And the B clients, I'm going to charge them a monthly retainer, a little bit different. The scope of the financial plan. You know, for my B clients, it's going to be a comprehensive plan. With my A clients, I'm going to go further. I'm going to do a property and casualty insurance review with them. Email response time could be a service level. You know, for A clients, it's same day. For B clients, 24 hours. Maybe you have a private client site or something that's you know, technology based. You know, A clients get full access, maybe B clients get limited access or resources only. Again, list the products and services first, then you can go back and figure out how you want to deliver them, or maybe more specifics on each one depending on the segments, right? Okay, so that's defining your part 2 of the niche strategy, your service and products. Now let's go to 3, your contact structure. Now this is arguably, of the meat of your niche strategy, the most important component, and I'm going to validate that in a second. But your contact structure is kind of like, you know, another way of looking at it is your touch points. What are our touch points? But there's a little distinction here. There are general touch points, top of mind awareness type touch points, and then there are more substantial touch points. And we're going to distinguish that here. Next, according to a Russ Allen Print study that many of you may have seen some time back, those clients who met the criteria for what they referred to as loyal clients, and that's where I get that term, gave 16 times more assets to their advisor over the prior 12 months than those who were just deemed satisfied. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that is a big number. 16 times? Now, even if it's not quite that high, even if they were fudging it, I mean, if it's 2 or 3 times, it's worth paying attention to it. So with that in mind, it's a universal principle. I mean, they're referring to probably more financial advisors than agents or marketers, but this is a universal principle because the principle plays out no matter who you are, because it's a people principle. It's not an industry principle, it's a people principle. Whether you're a marketer, wholesaler, insurance agent, or advisor, you can create this relationship, this loyal relationship with the right clients and get the same kind of results. A lot more business, a lot more referrals. The biggest factor between loyal and satisfied, however, was the number, seemed to be from this study, the number of touches by their primary advisor on non-investment matters throughout the year. Now that's a really important distinction. From their primary advisor, non-investment matters. That means this is kind of over and above what most of you are probably doing, right? You're saying, well, I'm talking to them, I'm connecting with them, but most of the time it's probably following up on the presentation or something that you had presented or recommended to them. It's transactional related. It's having something to do with something that you're selling them. That's not what we're talking about here. So this, good people, is the key to creating loyalty. Now, I'm guessing with that in mind, many of you are saying to yourselves, my gosh, Todd, who has the time for 24 non-investment or transactional contacts per year with all my clients? And that's a darn good question, and I'm going to answer that question for you in just a minute. But the short answer is, you're right, you can't. So that means that you have to prioritize. That means that you have to know who's in that group that you want, and they can have the potential to become loyal clients. If you're not focusing on them, if you haven't identified and focused on them, then you can't create this touch point strategy that's going to allow you to create loyal clients out of them, and you're not going to get those kind of results. So it's about focus. But let's start a little broader, and then let's zero in on that focus strategy, that hyper focus strategy, I'm going to call it, to create loyal clients out of your top 5%. So to kind of wrap up this contact structure here, what are some examples of contacts in general? Not those not necessarily non-transactional, creating loyal contacts, but just your general contact structure. So here are some obvious examples. And again, just like the services and products, I would suggest that maybe you take the same matrix, just create another header for it, and start just listing them. And you're already doing, I'm sure, quite a few, like birthday cards, anniversary cards. Maybe you're doing an annual meeting. Okay, all these things. Just get it out there what you're already doing. That's a great place to start. Then you'll discover a couple things. You might find that there are a few things that are really costing you more than they're getting in return. You know, like a newsletter, for instance. Nobody's opening them. It's not a very good newsletter. It's too long or whatever. Why are you wasting people's bandwidth and their inboxes if they're not watching them or looking at them or reading them? You know, that's an example. You might make some really good decisions once you know what you're doing and put it down on paper. But there are other things like annual meetings. Well, you're doing annual meetings, but is it all the same? Are you doing the same annual meetings, the same themes, the same number of them for every client? I hope not. But unfortunately, a lot of you are. And in fact, unfortunately, a lot are probably having a lot more meetings with people they shouldn't be than having meetings with people they should. And that's, again, why this is so important. You just don't have the luxury of time anymore in today's competitive and highly changing and dynamic market to be making those mistakes. We could get away with that stuff back before '08. Even in recent years, it's been better than that, obviously, but it's still way too dynamic to be lax about our time and our resources. And that's why this is so important. It's going to help you to allocate your time and your people's time and your resources much better. So this is your contact structure. Birthday, difference between an A and B. Maybe the B client gets a team card. Everybody signs it and a phone call. Maybe your A client gets a handwritten card from the primary advisor and a personal visit, or maybe a lunch, or maybe a dinner, right? But you're setting your intentions by putting this together. Let me sidebar a comment here. There are some perfectionists on this call, and I'll admit I'm one of them. And I want to caution you, because what you can tend to do is think, I'm not going to do this because the chances of me doing this, implementing it to the level that I'm planning it, is slim. Don't get caught up with that. That is a perfectionist mentality. Start by at least planning it and then begin to implement as you can. The bottom line is you're going to get better. You're going to improve. Your clients are going to have a better and better experience with you, and you're going to get better and better results. You don't have to implement it all at once. Just start it, get it framed up, and keep working on it. All right? Now, there are a lot of cool thing is there are a lot of different ways to create touches these days. I'm just going to quickly go through a few examples for you. I mean, you've got newsletters, you've got reports that you guys are sending out that you might not consider touches, but they are. You got live events that you might do, whether it's a client appreciation event, or maybe it's a webinar, seminar, or some type of training that you do. Industry news, new services that you can provide, announcements, community news, tips and tricks, magazines, surveys. I mean, gosh, there's so many. But the thing is, you can't really focus on all the creative ways to communicate because you don't have a structure to put it in. So most people just anecdotally go, you know what, we're not sending a newsletter. We ought to start doing that, and they just start doing it. But it's not within the context of a bigger plan. It has no place within the structure to know how much are we doing. Do we need to back off? Do we need to do more? Do we need to do something differently? And more importantly, can I focus on this area and get better at it? And that's what this compartmentalization type of methodology will do for you. It'll give you that focal point. Here's some other touch point, general touch point strategies. You know, you've got your traditional direct mail, print ads, signage, those type of things. Those are touches. Advertising, you know, we can get into nitpicking whether it's really advertising or a touch, but bottom line is we're not getting caught up on that. We're just saying there are a lot of different ways that you can communicate. I'll give you one example, and it ties into, again, why it's so important to know your target market. You know, if you're targeting a younger generation, you know, like one of my clients in Atlanta, he thought he had one target market. And I said, wait a minute, you've got young families with children that aspire to go to college and have a higher education. And then over here, you've got, you know, semi-retired or retired folks, baby boomers, basically. That are reaching retirement. Those are two totally separate demographics, as I mentioned earlier. And what's important to know about that? Well, when you start putting your contact points together and your service levels together, it's going to make a difference. For instance, you know, your younger generation is going to probably really appreciate a periodic text rather than a phone call. I do that all the time with my clients, especially my younger clients. I'm texting them, especially, those that I really want to create loyalty with. I'll text them about a ball game. I'll text them about the weather. I don't mean daily, but once a week I'll make an intention, or once a month at least make an intention to text them something just to check in and say, hey, that stands out, because not many other of their service providers are doing that. That's just an example. You do that with somebody else, though, it might not work so well. Maybe the annual meetings, how you're delivering that. Younger generation, maybe you can get away with doing that on a virtual type context. With an older generation, some of them very, very astute in social media and that technology, but others not so much. In fact, the majority would probably prefer a one-on-one face-to-face or a phone call. It makes a difference, and that's why you've got to distinguish those target markets in order to be able to flesh this out and really dial it in. The fourth component of your niche strategy is add value benefits, not ABCs, but AVBs. Niceties, if you will, that add convenience, expediency, fun to their experience with your firm. It might include things like concierge services, memberships to nearby clubs, networking groups, subscriptions, private client events. Let's just give you a couple other examples here. Again, using the same kind of niche or matrix setup here, and again, you could just add another category and continue to list here. Same spreadsheet. Loyalty awards, good idea. Identity theft protection for B clients. A clients, identity theft protection, plus they get a premium magazine subscription. Tax preparation services. B clients get a discount to a recommended provider. Some strategic partner that they're working with, or maybe they do tax prep in-house, but they offer a discount to B clients and they give it to them for free for their A clients, as long as they go to their recommended provider or they do it for them, right? Concierge services, access to career counseling. Again, the gentleman in Atlanta that's targeting young families with children that are aspiring to go to college and get a higher education, they're the ones that are going to appreciate something like career counseling. That's why it's so important to know who your target market is, so you can dial this in and create value that's unique to them. Nobody else can do that. Do you see how there's so many components here that you can put together that you can create something that's totally unique, right? Aside from just the fact that you're coming to this target market with what I'll call a congruent niche story or a congruent niche connection. In other words, when you think about your experience in that niche, like the gentleman at Edward Jones with the family and having, family members with disabilities and friends and clients like that, it's really important that you have that story to tell, and that sets you apart right from the get-go, because that's uniquely yours. Nobody else has that story. But beyond that, you can take these three key components of a niche strategy, unpack them, and you can create a blueprint or a fingerprint even that's unique to your business and the way you do business. It's a structure to do that. So there is no excuse for you saying, what really makes me unique? How am I any different than anybody else? Now you have the structure to answer that question. Now here's the cool thing. Like I've suggested, if you put all three of these categories in a spreadsheet, list them on the left-hand side, now what you've got is basically your niche strategy in one consolidated place. The framework is there. Now you just need to put up the siding and insulation and all that good stuff. You have your service offerings and your products offerings. You have your contact structure, and you also have your add value benefits. And now what you can do is go in and fine-tune the exact way that you want to deliver these things based on your different client segments. It's a beautiful thing. And here's the cool thing. Once you have this, you're not reinventing the wheel. Yes, there's a little heavy lifting up front, but once you're done, you're done. And you've got it forever, and it will continue to serve you that well. Now, the last component, next to the last component, now we have to communicate this niche strategy in a succinct way. And what I'm going to call this is basically a service model illustration. I'm going to give you a couple examples here. It's a way for you to paint a picture. People love visuals. We all know that. And if you can paint a picture in their mind of their experience with you, you're creating an anchor of emotion that will lead to a yes. They're envisioning what that experience is going to be like with you. And what you're doing is you're basically distilling down that niche strategy into a process of how you're going to interact with them throughout the year. It might start, this one starts at the beginning of the relationship. You might show this particular one to a brand new client. Here's where we are now. We're beginning our relationship. We're starting to get to know each other, and I'm going to collect some data from you, and then we're going to look at some critical gaps and try to design some solutions where there may be those critical gaps. And then I'm going to share that with you, and we're going to talk about it, and you're going to make decisions, and then we're going to implement it, and then we're going to support it on the back end. And we're going to go through this process once a year and make sure that you're up to date and that your needs are met and so forth. And here's another example from CEG Worldwide that is a good example. Similar, we start with a discovery meeting, put an investment plan together. We present that and talk about it with you, make mutual commitments, and then do the implementation and the follow-up. I mean, again, it lays out what you're doing for them in a way that you can talk through it and create a compelling emotional experience in their mind. You can add something else to this that further supports it or even takes it a step further. I've had some folks take their niche strategy and turn it into some kind of brochure of services, if you will. Here's an example. If you're a gold client or platinum client, here are the type of things that you're going to get from us. Now, caveat, I don't recommend that you do it this way. I would just list the services that way. Don't, you can call it gold, platinum, whatever. But I wouldn't necessarily put all three together and say, you know what, you don't qualify for this, so I'm only going to tell you about the platinum level. That's where you end up going with this kind of format. That's why I don't like it. But you could create a separate, kind of white paper on each one of these, or you could just have one in general and talk about it with the things that you do for everybody, and get specific with them. So those are some examples. So now you have a way to communicate that niche strategy in order to sell the value. And it also is helpful when you're talking to your centers of influence. I mean, how cool is it to be able to go through this with your center of influence to show how serious you take your business, how serious you take that experience for your clients. The last part of this, and then I want to wrap up with this hyper-focused niche strategy I mentioned earlier on, and take a few questions in the last 5 minutes or so of our time. But the last component here is the roles and responsibilities assignment. Essentially, you got to implement this, right? And if people don't know what their role is in implementing this, then it's not gonna happen, and it's not going to be sustainable. So what, again, you might want to do is create another simple matrix. So you've got your niche matrix, and then you could have a roles and responsibilities matrix. Couple ways to do this. This one, breaks it down by areas of responsibility. And what you have here is you've got the tasks or the responsibilities under the area of marketing or compliance or sales. And then you have three parties involved. You have the person that owns it, that's ultimately responsible, then the person that's been delegated to as the one that actually does the work, which is the P, the primary person. And then you have a backup, or in some cases, that might be a secondary person that might support or be a backup to that primary person. So that's one way that you can do it. Another client of mine did it by process. So he laid the process out, and then he broke the process down into steps, and then he assigned responsibility to the individual members of his team. So that's another way to do it. Good thing about doing this step is you've got a framework for onboarding new people, for trying to figure out who the next hire is, and how to redistribute roles and responsibilities when it's necessary, and what people need training on, and where you need to improve your efficiencies. There's just a lot of benefits to doing that. Now, I mentioned the hyper-focus strategy. We talked about that top 5%, right? That's the key. It used to be the 20-80 rule, but what I found was 20% of the average person's book of business is too many to do this hyper-focus strategy with. So I would start with whatever you feel like you can actually do. But maybe start by at least identifying your top 5%. So when you list all your clients, and everybody should have this list somewhere, list all your clients and how much revenue they're generating for you during the year. Could be GDC, could be revenue, could be premiums, whatever that key metric is. List those in rank, and then add it up to figure out what the top 5% is. How many clients are those? If you got a book of 150 clients, it might be 5 to 10 of those clients. I don't know. But figure out what that top 5% is and kind of narrow it down to a number that you can manage. then what I've done here in the spreadsheet, and this is something that if you want this spreadsheet, it's a much bigger spreadsheet. There's a lot more there. Just email me and I'll send it to you. But basically, you have your touch points defined. Those 24 key touch points are on here for you to plan. Twice a month, you've got kind of top of mind touch points, and you have one serious touch point once a quarter. Get back to that. There we go. One serious contact once a quarter. My recommendation is at the beginning of each quarter, you look at that quarter, you decide what that key touch point is, you get your assistant or you do it yourself, but you make sure that that's on the calendar. That's your next agenda item, is to get it on the calendar. And then you schedule the next 3 months during that quarter of touches, unless you've already done this a year in advance. And most of my clients do this a year in advance, the monthly touches, and then go back each quarter and just look at those touches for that quarter and refine them. All right, so this strategy alone will allow you to go much deeper with those top 5% clients. And that's where you're going to get the loyalty factor and the 6 times multiple of results from those clients in the way of additional business and referrals. So to sum us up, we've got 6 parts of the ultimate niche strategy: the primary niche or area of specialization, your core services and products, your contact structure, your add value benefits, your service model illustration, your roles and responsibilities matrix. Once those are done, it's done. You're ready to roll, and all you're doing from that point forward is just slightly refining it. So quick call to action, then I want to open up the last 5 minutes for some Q&A. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do, remember the questions. What am I committed to do? What am I going to do? Why am I going to do it? When am I going to complete it? So you may already have some things that you've written down based on what we've talked about, but here are the specific things that I think are going to give you a lot more lift than maybe just some anecdotal takeaways. And they're designed that way. The first is to download the niche assessment that I referred to earlier that Devin and Brian took. That's going to be so enlightening for you. And if you combine that, for the first folks that do this, that complete that and submit it, I'm going to give you 30 minutes of my time to go over that with you, and I promise you I will help you identify the weakest links in your chain and give you some immediate ways that you can make an impact, whether you want it to be anecdotal or whether you really want to step back and do it more methodically and completely. Either way is up to you, but I'm going to make sure that you walk away with a clear understanding of where your focus needs to be in 2018. And then from that conversation, I'm just going to encourage you to put a plan together for next year. I spent October and November with my clients trying to get that done so they don't have to worry about it over the holidays. If you haven't done that, do it now before Christmas and New Year's Eve hit, so you can really go into January with clarity of purpose and intention. Now, with that, let me take a few questions, and I've already got a few that have come in, so let me answer these couple real quickly. And in the meantime, type in your question into the chat area, and I'll go back to those in just a second. First question is, do I have to define my target market or ideal client before working on this niche strategy process? I'm going to say yes. It's only going to help all of it come together much quicker for you and easier for you. So please take some time to define your target market before you spend a lot of time on this. Not before you take the niche assessment, because that's going to involve your target market. It'll ask about that too. But before you actually start diving in and unpacking your niche strategy like we've gone through today, it would be a good idea. Next question. How do you decide who gets what services and touches, etc.? That's a good question as well. I would say, again, when you list all of it in a spreadsheet like we talked about on the left-hand side, and you've segmented your books and you know what those segments represent in the way of, the demographics, psychographics, you got a picture of who those categories of clients represent. It's going to make it easier for you to figure out what level of service you deliver or what services or products or add value benefits you deliver. That's the really easiest way for you to figure out who should get what, is to have that kind of matrix where you've got A, B, and C, and D clients, and you're trying to align the services with or appropriate them for those clients. All right, other questions. Only specialize in long-term care protection. How should I adapt your advice to that? So long-term care protection. So the question is, again, do you have clarity about your target market. I mean, you could argue that everybody needs long-term care. The problem is that not everybody out there thinks they need long-term care, and not everybody out there necessarily can afford long-term care depending on their age, where they are in life, and all that good stuff. So I would say start by defining your ideal client. Those folks that buy the most from you, that have the most compelling need for making that decision now as opposed to later. That's what I'd want to define first, is who is that target market? And then to develop your core services, deliverables. If there aren't a ton of products and services that you offer within that, because it's a pretty narrow solution set, then you're going to have to get more creative around the other areas in the niche strategy, like those touch points that I mentioned, as well as the add value benefits. Hopefully that answers your question. Do you help put different people together with different skills? Do you help to put people together, different people? If I understand that question, Alan, do you help to put different people together with different skills? If you're talking about within your business, like having, you know, maybe you've got an RIA, or you have a type of business where you've got multiple advisors or multiple agents, and they all have different areas of specializations and personalities. Yeah, you know, that's really cool. If you have more of an ensemble type of model, then you can basically take each one of those individuals and kind of turn them into a value add. So those are the kind of like products that you offer. I have a specialist in this, I have a specialist in that. And those are the things that you can develop. And if you can combine those specialties to create a unique package that's aimed at one target market, as opposed to each one with specialty having a different target market, it makes it even more powerful. But if you have a group of folks all with different skills, different areas of specialization, you may have to create separate target markets for each one of those and break them out that way. You can still have a target market for the company, but it's going to probably be a broader market if you do it that way. I hope that helps a little bit. One more question, we're going to wrap up because we're at the top of the hour. How many clients should I try to manage with the hyper-focus strategy you mentioned? I would say, you know, it's an individual answer because I don't know what your capacity is, how hard you're working in the business as opposed to on the business, and those type of things. But typically, you might start with 10 clients. I would say 5 to 10 clients to start with. Just get the strategy dialed in, just get the framework dialed in, and then begin to do that over the course of, you know, maybe the next 60 days, not 60 days, excuse me, the next 6 months, and see how you're managing to it. If it's too much, you might need to back down and concentrate even further on your top 1 or 2%. All right, but start somewhere. Start with 1 client if you have to, but I would suggest maybe 5 or 10 is a good place to start. Do it for 3 to 6 months and then adjust from there. All right. So with that, I'm going to wrap us up because we're at the top of the hour, and I want to respect everybody's time. I'm so grateful that you were here with us today. We're going to send an email reply with the replay, and I want to leave you with a quick word of inspiration from Lou Holtz, a good coach that I'm sure many of you know. The quote is, "It's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it." I want that to resonate. It's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it. I want to help you to carry that load in a way that's lighter on you. That it may be a little heavier initially, but once you build that muscle, everything becomes lighter at that point going forward. With this strategy, it's a little heavy lifting up front, but you can knock it out if you focus on it. And once it's done, it's done. All you have to do is just manage to it, refine it, and the results will be exponential and for many years to come. And for those of you, by the way, that are out there wanting to build value in your business so you can ultimately sell it for retirement or any number of things, maybe even pass it on to somebody that you love and care about, you're going to maximize the value of your business by doing this type of thing, by documenting your niche strategy and your business plan. So with that, folks, look for those follow-up emails. Please take that assessment. I really encourage you to do it. It's going to be enlightening. And for, again, the first 30 that do so, I'm going to give you 30 minutes of my time, and I promise you, I'm going to deliver some value to you so that you can walk away with some really good insights, some strategies to make next year your best ever. Happy holidays, everybody, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.